Well, one of the big reasons all of us are in ministry is because we want to see more people meet Jesus and grow in a relationship with Him. And so today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to share with you 7 church growth strategies that actually work.
Welcome back to Practical Church Planting. My name is Brian Androsian, and with me is Dylan Dodson. And today we're going to give you 7 church growth strategies that actually work.
That work, that's right. And this episode is brought to you by Ambassadors Ministries. Wouldn't it be nice to have a larger paid church staff, to have more leaders that can give you dedicated time to the mission God has given your church? Of course, we know the answer to that is yes, but often for church planters and ministries or churches, the finances don't allow for multiple staff or many staff as you would like. But Ambassadors Ministries wants to help. They can enable you to hire leaders you've identified by coaching them to fundraise a full-time, part-time, or supplemental salary. And best part is it's at no cost to your church, so you can stay focused at the mission at hand. So you can go to ambassadorsministries.com/practical, ambassadorsministries.com/practical, or click in the show notes for more information. Again, as we've said these last handful of episodes, we've had a lot of staff raise support over the years. It's allowed us to do things that we couldn't have done otherwise. Many times we think it's just the lead pastor that does it. And so check them out. They'll give you coaching, and they'll help help you run your money that you raise the support with. And yeah, it's been really beneficial to us, and so we recommend that route for your church, ambassadorsministries.com/practical.
Yes.
So today, 7 church growth strategies that actually work. It's funny, sometimes in church circles we're like, we just want to be faithful, and growth is like this bad thing. And then all of our podcast episodes that have growth in the title get downloaded a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it. I think most who listen to this podcast would say, like, yeah, we want to be faithful, but we do want to reach more people.
Sure.
But I just think that sometimes it's just funny in church world. It's like, obviously you want to focus on the right things.
Yeah.
So you want to reach more people, but the word growth is like this weird, bad word.
Yeah.
But then what we're actually looking for is growth. So
That's right.
anyway, here we go. 7 growth strategies that actually work. Again, for this too, this is not like a get rich quick.
Yeah.
Or growth.
Get big quick.
Get big quick, they go. But this is just like, if you do these things, it'll help you grow and retain and impact more people. It might not be thousands of thousands, but depending on your context, it could be 10 more people than you would have had, or 20 more people, and that matters. And so that's what this is about. This is things that you can actually do to grow your church. It's not about the speed or necessarily, you're going to get tons and tons of massive results, but every single person matters.
Yep.
And so here's some things that are helpful.
Yeah, it's growth is all relative. This isn't like how
Yep.
to become a big church or how to become a church of X size. It's just how to reach more people, and that more people can vary from context to context.
That's right. So here we go. Number 1, talk about inviting people from stage often. One of the things I've noticed, and to be honest, this is not something that we've done particularly well at New City, or just done a lot of. One thing I've noticed, but some of the larger churches, or maybe some of the podcasts or different pastors I've listened to, is that they'll often talk about inviting people, and not just once in a while, or not just assume you're going to do it, but they'll do it, they'll do pushes for it, and that sort of thing. And again, you can, for all of these, I mean, if you want to think that something is gimmicky or not, it's whatever. This is just the reality of things that we've noticed. The people that talk about it more often are more likely to encourage people to do it. And oftentimes, when we talk about this podcast, when you assume people know what to do, or just assume people are going to do something, they often don't do it, right? So if you assume people are going to be generous financially, that's often not the case. Typically, the churches that talk about generosity a lot, that do a little bit better in that area, because you're talking about it and not in a weird, awkward guilt way. And that's the truth for this as well. It's not like, I remember years ago, so a little quick side note, this is what not to do. I don't know what I was, looking at some churches, whatever. This is like we were in the launch phase of New City. Yeah. And I found this church. It was kind of in our area. And I don't know how this is like literally no joke. Like, I wasn't like trying to find, it just happened this way. So I found this church, and I like to click on like sermons and get to know churches or whatever. And so I clicked on this church that was going to be potentially near where we were trying to plant. Maybe somebody had like told me about them. I don't know. And I clicked on it, and I clicked on a sermon. And I think it was just audio. So I don't think there was a video there. And I just I don't listen to the whole thing. So I click through like 2 or 3 times. And at one point, he's talking about inviting people to church. Now, this church was a dying church. They actually closed their doors like a year or 2 later. And so, but he was obviously frustrated, and I get it, about not people inviting. And it was like, you need to invite your friends. Like, don't you care?
Yeah.
And he didn't say this, but it was almost like, if you don't invite your friends, this church is going to close. And it's like,
man.
It was just like, I felt so awkward listening to this thing. So when you talk about it, all these things need to be talked about in a positive and encouraging, exciting light. You might be discouraged, but nobody wants to join a losing team. And
Yeah.
and so when you talk about it, it's like, hey, during your next steps or during your sermons, whatever, it can't just be like a one-off thing. And you don't necessarily have to talk about it every week, but if it's something you want to try, it's like, hey, we're going to commit to this for a month or every other week or whatever it is. But talking about inviting people from stage often really helps.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing, and it goes along with giving that, like, you assume if someone is like a dedicated church goer or member that they just know that this is something they're supposed to do. And I think a lot of people do, but they forget. And I don't think people are necessarily always making a conscious choice not to invite
Right.
people. Like, they're not seeing their friends and thinking, I'm just not going to invite them today. But I think it's not, like, we're in ministry, so sometimes we forget that, like, people that aren't, that church isn't always a part of every single facet of every part of their lives. I mean, obviously we want it to permeate their lives as much as possible, but we are also trying to meet people where they are and not trying to pretend like there's something that they're not. And so talking about it more, it's not like, I don't think it has to come across as a gimmick. I think it can come across as genuinely helping people remember that this is something that we're supposed to be doing. It's just like generosity, like you're saying. It's just reminding people this is something we're supposed to be doing. It's not guilting them, or it's not trying to manipulate them to do it in some way that they wouldn't have before. It's just a reminder that as members of the church or as followers of Christ or whatever, that this is something that we're supposed to be doing. And I think that I don't think people will see it as like harping on it too much or being too focused on it, if that's kind of the mindset that you're coming at it with.
Yeah, and I think too, sometimes like if we think about like Christmas or Easter, like these big holidays, it's like people just assume they're bigger, and so they'll come. And that I do think there's some credibility to that, but I also think that people just typically invite more. Maybe you feel, and I think part of it is like, I get it, you feel a little bit less awkward because it's Easter, but I think people are a little bit more apt to say, hey, you should join me today, where it's not as normal other times. And also too, COVID changed a lot of things, so people are working from home a lot more, and so again, probably depends on your context and where your church is a little bit too. But some people are not around as many people as they used to be, so this is going to happen less, particularly if it's not talked about. And so again, if this is something that you haven't tried and you've been discouraged about it, you could try in a winsome way, consistently throwing it in the sermon, but not harping on it for like minutes at a time, or in the next steps, or just encouraging people and that sort of thing. Just talking about inviting people from stage more often and consistently is something that I've noticed some churches do very well.
And I think it's helpful. Obviously, this is different depending on your city and context and things, but especially where we are in the South, it seems that most people have, or maybe not most, but a lot of people have some sort of relationship with the church, whether it's active or not. Like I think a lot of people that I meet, I don't come across a lot of people who are like actively like, no, I do not go to church, or no, I'm not, whatever. But they may not actually be doing it. So, they may like say, kind of have this like,
they're not necessarily hostile to it.
yeah, it
but they
may
just
have
don't
this
care.
like kind of like relationship with the church that's kind of like at arm's reach, that they don't really go or don't really engage it, but it's the Southern thing to do. So you just kind of like say that you go, but you don't actually do it. And so I think especially like where we're living, it's helpful to remind people to do that, because you can assume that people are good. You can assume that people are good in this area of their life without actually engaging in that kind of conversation. And so I think it helps to actually remind people that this is a conversation to engage people in. Even if you think they might be good, or even if you think this might not be for them, you can still engage that conversation and kind of open the door that way.
So yeah, talking about inviting people from stage consistently or often is something that can help.
Yep.
Number 2, growing your YouTube presence. So we've done an episode on this last year, and I looked it up this time. Not always, they always do this. Episode 234. I think it's like 8 super practical things that we still do to grow a YouTube channel. I don't know. I mean, this is all relative, and so whatever. I can't remember what the number was when we started doing this. It was probably around. You want to take a stab at it? 200, 150,
Yeah, I was
250?
going to say about 150. Yeah, so
So I think
somewhere in
it's
there.
probably about
Probably sub
150.
300. We'll say.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And now we're about, like, as of this recording, almost about like 650.
Yeah.
And so this is probably about 18 months of doing that, or a year of doing that maybe. And so it's just a lot of consistency over time. So episode 234, if you want to grow your YouTube channel, it's super practical, like this is, like tells you actually how to do it, not just like post more videos. That's not helpful.
Yep.
So listen to that. This is why I would say it's helpful, because we have people who come because they see our stuff online. And part of when you focus on YouTube and therefore, this online content, you're more likely to engage and reach people. So a couple weeks ago, this girl started coming, and she said that she had been watching, I don't necessarily know how she connected with us, but she had been watching following us on Instagram. And so some of our videos that we talk about in episode 234, we repurpose them. So we'll do them on YouTube and Instagram stories and reels or whatever.
Yeah.
Different stuff like that. And so we're making them because we're trying to be consistent with our YouTube, but then also goes on different platforms. And so she'd been watching some of these videos and then she showed up. Or, you know, we hear, you know, one of the biggest things we hear often when people come is that we watched your live stream a couple times, which we do it through YouTube. And so all that to say, let me be clear, this is not a get big quick scheme. This is definitely a slow,
this is a long game,
consistent thing, but it makes you better at it and you can figure out content. So episode 234, but the online engagement piece has been really important because especially now, like you're checking out before you go to a church. Very rarely someone's like, I'm just going to come. Or like, you know, I was talking to a guy yesterday, he came to us for the New City for the first time. He had just moved to Raleigh 5 days ago. Said he found us on Google, you know, looked at the church or whatever. But that, I mean, I didn't like keep asking that question because that's kind of weird. But undoubtedly that means he looked at our website, he clicked around. He probably didn't watch an entire sermon, but he probably checked out something or checked out our social media. And so it was there. And so growing your YouTube presence. Another thing is you just need to make this a priority. It doesn't have to be amazing. You don't need to have a video every single week. Again, that episode walks you through a lot of the stuff, episode 234 of how we do it and how you can do it as well. But growing your YouTube presence, you know, can help. So
yeah, and in my mind, when I think about growing your YouTube presence, it's not growing your subscriber count. I think that will happen if you do these things to whatever varying degree. But at the end of the day, you know, we're just because we grow to however many subscribers doesn't necessarily mean like the church is growing at all.
Yep.
And so we're less we like seeing that because it means that something is going well, but we're not trying to translate that necessarily to people in the door. But
certainly, I mean, to that point, like our YouTube growth has been way higher than our
of course,
like,
definitely.
So it's not,
But in my mind, when I talk about growing your YouTube presence, I think it's just being like growing how present you are on it, like literally growing your presence, because I cannot like in my mind, I think either commit to it or just get off it completely. And I don't mean that to be like super cynical, but I've seen just many churches that just things aren't updated in a very long time. And it's clear it's not something that they're using anymore, which and to some capacity it's like, fine, but just don't have it. And if you decide that's not a route you want to go, I think there's reasons to go that route, but I'd rather you say we're not going to explore that route at all than to say we're going to upload something and then leave it for months and months. And then when we get around to upload something else and it just looks like it looks like the church is barely around. Because there are some churches that like I genuinely have wanted to follow or like have wanted to see what they do, and they've uploaded a lot of stuff in the past, but then completely stopped and haven't uploaded anything in like I can think of one that we're getting on close to a year. And clearly this is just I don't know the reason. I don't know, and it's not my business, whatever. You know, it's not like I work there or anything, but I'm just curious, like if it's something that they just decide this isn't a priority, in which case, cool, maybe upload some sort of video that says, hey, we're not going to be uploading videos here anymore, or something directing them somewhere else, or even get rid of it if that's what you want to do, but whatever. But I think the strategy, so to speak, of we'll just kind of throw things up there when we get to it is recipe for it just becoming a wasted space and a place where people will go to check you out because they see your logo, they see that you have a channel there, and it'll look like you're not in existence or you're just not kind of doing these things anymore. And I think that raises a lot of questions of why that can work against you when trying to actually reach people that are not just to grow your subscriber count, but that the people that are actually looking you up to potentially come to your church.
Yeah, I think part of this too is like an age thing. So maybe the older you are, the less you would care. The younger you are, the more you're going to look it up. But it can be like, it's not necessarily a neutral thing. We talk about this as a live streaming as well. It's not neutral. It's like either good or bad.
Yeah.
And if you see someone who posted a lot of stuff and then has been a long time, you might think they don't exist anymore. And they might very well. But again, I think the older you are, the less you would care about this necessarily.
Yeah.
The younger you are, like I would be like, do you like exist?
Yeah.
Or like this is weird to me that you wouldn't prioritize this or you wouldn't upload it. Now again, a lot of people don't understand church world, small churches, they don't have the budget, whatever, but this also is not necessarily a budget thing.
Yeah.
We talked about it in episode 234. So anyway, growing your presence, it's not necessarily correlating like you grow YouTube presence and all these people are going to show up in a new city, but it'll make you better at doing online stuff. And I think you definitely will hear people say something about online is what they saw and allowed them to come.
Oh, yeah,
and so
I agree.
We've done, we do like these Bible in a minute things, these Bible studies, whatever. One kind of gripe I do have is some people will talk about, and we agree with is why we do it, like using your YouTube, like why churches don't rank as high as like all these other channels, even though they do like Bible content.
Yeah.
Part of that is because people's personal channels are just better than church channels. Like they just
that is
it's
true.
not really a fair comparison.
Yeah.
Like people just follow personal accounts more than they follow organizations.
Yep.
Also, some people that are like about church aren't going to click necessarily on a church YouTube channel, where they might click on a Christian YouTuber that they don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
Whatever. And also, like we've done a lot of these Bible studies and stuff, and it's not like they perform super well because we're not this big church.
Yeah.
So sometimes people are like, if you just do this, you'll reach all these people, and it's like that's not necessarily true because we've tried it.
No, very true.
But it has grown a little bit, and so it's been helpful, and we've gotten better over time. And so, anyway, growing your YouTube presence will make an impact on your physical in-person church, community presence as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 3, an engaging online presence. Engaging online presence. So this goes not just for YouTube, which we focused on, but also with our everything we do.
Yep.
Now, again, fortunately for us, we can reuse a lot of the content. So, like, we'll do like a Bible in a minute, for example. We do that every week, and so we'll record it, and then we'll post it on Facebook and YouTube, and then we'll do the Insta Story version, and we'll post it on a reel for Instagram and TikTok.
Yep.
And reels, I mean, they're not necessarily impacting people that follow you. I would say this is a little pro tip. If you do like we do, and you do like a Bible in a minute, for example, or like a sermon clip, which we also do, we post it on our Instagram stories. We also post it on reels, but I turn off post to I forget what the word is.
Yeah. But, yes. I know
Post
that.
to profile, something like
Right,
that.
yeah.
Because it looks weird if it's on your Insta story and it's on your profile because people will see it in their feed. Maybe it's post to feed. I turn
Yes,
that off
yeah.
because that's just like overkill. And typically, reels are showing to people who random people a lot of times.
Yeah.
Which is just a fun way to engage more people and that sort of thing. But yeah, all together, this has to be done. And again, sometimes people are like, well, I'm not a social media person themselves, and so like the pastor's not necessarily, so the church doesn't do it. And I just like the pastor himself doesn't have to be the one who like runs it, but you got to have somebody who's doing something consistently. We've got a lot of episodes on social media. In fact, if you go to our website right now, practicalplanting.com, you can sign up for a newsletter, and we send a highly practical guide, a church planner's guide to social media, which honestly, at some point, it's really good. We might take it down and do something different because that's like a lot of great stuff, and it's completely free.
Yeah.
So you should subscribe to our newsletter, practicalplanting.com, just to get that. And we walk you through like practically what you can post every single week to make this consistent. Because again, just like YouTube, it's like, oh, they haven't posted on Instagram in 6 months.
Yeah.
Or on Facebook, they only ever post their sermon. Like it's just kind of weird. And so engaging your online presence, again, we hear often live stream or social media or whatever. People are going to find you. Again, the more stuff you post, the more searchable you can be. It's a slow, consistent thing, which I think why a lot of people give up because they post a couple times and then they don't blow up and like, well, this isn't working. Part of it's not just about blowing up, it's just about engaging your people, which we talk about various episodes as well, how it's encouraging to stay in front of people. But an engaging online presence, again, you can go to practicalplanting.com and get that free church planner guide to social media if you haven't yet. And that can be really helpful, but this way to grow your church.
The more and more we do, like we talk about online presence, and the more and more churches that follow, the more I kind of realize that sometimes an engaging online presence is just having an online presence or having a consistent online presence, I should say, consistent. Where like, I mean, yes, granted, you could post a lot and have it be really cheesy or really bad, and that could be detrimental. But the bigger issue that I see, and I think that's what people are more worried about, but the bigger issue that I often see is just not doing anything.
Yep.
And or just posting, if you record your sermons, just posting a sermon recording or posting your Facebook Live or something like that every Sunday. And there's so many, and I try not to like use this podcast just to like pile on churches because other churches do things way better than we do in different ways, and so everyone has their strengths and things. But I see so many that's like Sunday morning, it's like you go on Facebook or something, and it's like it's church time. Like it's every church is like posting their thing, and then I'm like, man, I haven't seen anything of any of these churches since last Sunday, and I click on it, and it's just like church was live, and then last Sunday church was live, and it's like we're not doing anything outside of that, and just like a few things here and there goes from a kind of not really great page to a great page, really, just by comparison to others. But I think sometimes you get so afraid that like, oh, my content's not going to be as good, or I don't have as good of a camera, or I'm not quite as good in front of a camera, like when it's not on stage or whatever. We just don't do anything. And I think that so many people or so many churches would benefit from just do something. It's going to probably be bad at first, but get through the bad, and it's going to get better over time, rather than just not doing anything, because I think that's the worst looking kind of like social media presence that you can have.
Yeah, it's not about being amazing; it's about being consistent,
Yep.
and you'll figure it out as you do it. And so, yeah, so you can I get that guide. I mean, you could follow us. We're New City RDU. It's not amazing, you know. You might be like, I could do that, which you can.
You
it's
can.
not about.
Yep.
We're just consistent with it, and we like on Facebook pages. They don't get shown to a lot of people, and so like we don't get tons of engagement.
No,
but we still
right.
do it consistently because you never know who might search it, who might look it up, you know, who might share it, that sort of thing.
Yep.
But an engaging online presence, again, it's not new if you listen to this podcast a while, but if you're doing like one post a week, you're missing an opportunity there. And so we've got a lot of episodes on it. Again, 234 is YouTube. You can start there and just repurpose some of that content.
Yep.
But an engaging online presence will definitely translate into engaging people in your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 4, proactive follow-up. So what we mean by this is not waiting for somebody to ask you for more information, but you going after them. Sounds bad, but like being proactive
Yeah.
about them. So like, for example, you know, I think a lot of churches might do like the Connect card, whatever, like fill out your Connect card, but do you have a system of following up to them? So like if, you know, we've got things set up, we've talked about it in the past as well, of like, if you give us a Connect card, we have an automated system over the next couple of weeks, you'll get emails and texts. So it's not just a one-time thing, and it's not reliant upon us remembering, you know, have we emailed this person? Have we said this person?
Right.
It's the same thing for everyone else. Like we have a proactive, I mean, they have to give us the information, obviously, but it's like, it's a proactive system to get more information to them and ask if they have any questions. For smaller churches as well, this is really beneficial. Something you could definitely do is being proactive in terms of reaching out to meet with people. So I think sometimes we wait to see like, oh, if they want to meet, I'd be happy to meet with anybody, but then we don't like proactively reach out to them, and they, for various reasons, might feel nervous or weird or not even think to reach out to you, and so then it doesn't happen. And I've just found my rule has been they have to come twice. You know, I don't, maybe it wouldn't be creepy, I don't know, but I feel like it's like trying to like, you were here, let's meet.
Yeah.
But like pretty much, if you're a guy and you come to our church, you will be reached out with, you know, within a couple weeks if you come more than once. And we've actually got a system now where we have someone helping us with some of with the women, so that women can be followed up with as well. But yeah, we just like, hey, they fit out a Connect card, they've been here at least twice. You know, we're small enough. You can tell for the most part. I mean, not always, but pretty much you can tell if someone's come at least for a couple times. Now, some people don't always respond to the email. They might not respond, whatever. But at least I've reached out, and then it has turned into conversations. Because often what's happened is like, I just be honest. The strength of the smaller church is like the pastor can meet with more people, and you as a pastor might not feel that special, and like you're not that special, but it's still meaningful to have a pastor reach out to you. Yeah. And I think you'll find that the people that you actually meet with are going to be much more likely to stick because they were seen and they had a good time. And so proactively doing that, clear next steps as well. So like for us, if you're new, we say, you know, you can fill out a Connect card or text the number, which we're going to talk about that in a second. But if you fill out a Connect card, if you're here on a Sunday, we have a teal wall. It's very obvious. After service, drop it off. You'll get a Chick-fil-A gift card. Like we tell them exactly what to do and not just leave it up to them. And if you have like a Connect card and you say, drop it off the Connect table, but you don't tell them where the Connect table is, that's not helpful. So we're a big fan of colors because it's just teal or whatever, but something that's really easy to stand out to where to go. We want to be very clear with what you want them to do. But yeah, proactive follow-up, not just waiting for people to ask you what to do, but if they give you information or you're clear from stage, here's what we want you to do. They're more likely to do it because they actually know what to do.
Yeah, and I think not everyone is a systems person. I want to acknowledge that, but just a few small systems, like if you just bite the bullet or get someone who is a systems person to help set it up, to get these things in place can help so much in the long run. Like I think one of the best things that we do is our follow-up system for new people, and it's 95% automated. Like it takes someone putting them into the system, and then everything from there is automation, and it all happens for us. But if we were to just try and do all that ourselves, or if we were saying like we'll just follow up with people, whatever, it would be nowhere near as good. And it's not good because we're good. It's good because we found some software that makes it good, kind of, you know, and we're able to set it up a long time ago, and it's been good since. And so just having some of these systems set up, even if you're not a systems person, just helps so much in the long run. Like, I don't know if you can remember how long ago we actually set up the current system that we use.
It's been a couple of years.
But years, yeah. And like, sure, we make tweaks, but it's always been a very similar system because it works, and it's not something that takes a lot of manpower. It's like if all of our staff dropped off the face of the planet, our follow-up system wouldn't change because it would, you know, I mean, Dylan would do it, and it would take 5 minutes every Sunday. Like it's not a super cumbersome thing. But if you're a first-time visitor, you get followed up with heavily, like in a really good way, to where it probably does seem like it may seem like it takes a
Yeah.
lot of manpower, but it doesn't at all. But just some of these systems to get set up, to be proactive about what follow-up looks like and have a system set up to make it happen, will make it so much better than it would be just doing it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, it's just weird if you go through the effort to fill out a Connect card and then you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of weird to do. People expect to be followed up with if they give you their information.
Mm-hmm.
We just do text and emails. We currently use text in church. That is going to change probably,
I wasn't going to say, but yeah.
it'll probably change a little bit, and
Yeah.
we'll explain why. Nothing against it. Text church has been great for us. And so we have a series of automated text and emails, and they even have like, I watched like some webinar with them a while ago, and when we first signed up years ago, and they like walk you through, here's some templates, and so I just kind of used theirs and changed it. It was really helpful.
Yeah.
But we just put their text and their phone number in there on Sunday, and over the next couple weeks, they get a series of those. And there's lots of softwares that do it. This is what we've used historically, and then it's automated.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
just a proactive follow-up. Again, I think, if you're a smaller church, one of your strengths is you can kind of tell if somebody is newer. And so reaching out to them, particularly if they've given you a Connect card, that means you have their information to say, hey, I'd love to connect. Here's what I do. I said, hey, it's easier when you're the pastor because I see you. But it's like, hey, I'd love to connect to hear more of your story. Like a super simple thing. I have a Calendly, which is what I recommend. So I said, here's a time on my calendar. Pick any time that works for you, and I'll follow up with a place. I mean, it takes hardly any time at all. You don't have all this back and forth because they just pick a time on your calendar.
Yeah.
And then you follow with a place.
Yep.
So being proactive about it and not just waiting for everyone to sign up for all the things you have going on will really help you, because if you reach out to them and connect with them, they're going to be much more likely to stay.
Yeah, for sure.
That was number 4. Number 5, mention new guests every Sunday. And so having just a practice of saying, hey, if you're new, which again, another pro tip is we recommend saying new, not if it's your first time, particularly with our Connect card. So during our next steps, it's our first one every single week. Not everyone that calls New City Church home, like nobody cares. I think they like that. They expect it. They know if they invite somebody that they're going to be there. It also gives this idea that there are new people here every week. Now for us, we do have some new people every week.
Yep.
If you're smaller, that's not the case. Everyone sitting in your service doesn't know that. Like you might think they know everybody, but they don't. Like, so even if there's literally no, and we've done this in the past too, where like we know there's not a single new person here, but you still do it anyway, because it reminds people, but also lets them know if they're new, that if they invite someone that they'll be followed up with. But for us, it's just like, hey, if you're new, here's our Connect card. You can fill it out after service, drop it off at the Teal Wall, give Chick-fil-A gift card. Just thanks for being here, and we'll give you more information about the church, something short and simple.
Yep.
And we do it every week. And then at the end of our service, we also mention how we end our service is we mention the Connect card again. We mention how to give. We say our bottom line, and then we say you are sent. So again, because if people come in late and they miss the Connect card part, they can still see that. And we say new guests because often, not always, but many people won't fill out a card their very first Sunday, but they might fill it out their second or third Sunday. And if you say first time, they'll be like, well, it's not my first time.
Yeah.
And then they won't do it. But mentioning new guests, not awkward. Don't make them raise their hand. Don't make them do anything.
Yeah.
They can fill out. For us, we have Connect cards in the seat backs in front of people. So it's like they can do it right then. And it's not this big awkward thing. They don't have to get up. They can wait till the end of the service. But mentioning them every single Sunday will be much more likely to they expect people like me to be here, and you're much more likely to get information from them.
Yep, and it's the kind of thing where you need to get in the habit of doing it, because there's going to be many Sundays, probably, hopefully not, but where there's not new guests.
Yeah.
But if you're just in the habit of doing it, it doesn't feel weird. And regardless of size,
I just want to say what you said. For many churches, that will be the case.
Yep.
So it's easy for us to see these big churches on social media, whatever. The average church is less than 100 people. The
Right.
average church
Oh,
is
yeah.
not having new people every single week. So if that's you, don't feel bad, but still do this.
Yep.
So anyway, just want to
But
emphasize that.
get in the habit of doing
Right.
it, because if you're just kind of saying it here and there, then it may seem like kind of weird that, like, hey, there's no one here. Why is he mentioning it today when he hardly ever mentions it at all? But if you're saying it every week, no one around is going to be looking like, oh, there's no new people here this week. But because they're in the habit of hearing it every week.
Yep.
For us, we say it every week during our next steps or our announcements portion and at the end. And so it's no one, regardless of if we were bigger or smaller, no one, if they've been here for more than a couple weeks, would ever think, oh, why are they saying this? There's no new people, because they just know this is part of our vocabulary. This is just what we say, because we want to make sure we're never going to know every single person that's here. Even if we get cut in a third, we're probably still not going to know every single person, because there may be someone that sneaks in late that you don't notice, or for whatever reason. And so it's just helpful for people to just always address. And I think that also helps your people realize that, like, hey, there may be new people here that I didn't notice. Even when we were much smaller, when we first launched, or in kind of like the early years when things were a lot smaller, people just there's always going to be a possibility for your people, maybe not you, but to miss somebody that came in. And so I don't think many people are ever really thinking there's no new people here, because nobody really thinks that they saw everyone. And I mean, if you're a church of 20, then sure, maybe. But if you're just in the habit of saying it, even if you're that small, I don't think anyone's going to give you flack, or anyone's going to have a problem with it, because they just know this is what we say. We want to be prepared if a new person does come. And the way we're prepared is by addressing it every single week.
Yep. So yeah, mention new guests every Sunday in an awkward way. It's really helpful. Number 6, explain everything. So we've got a lot of episodes on preaching and all that sort of thing as well, which is really helpful, important. We're all for like using the big Bible words. People need to know these things. If you never use them, people are going to learn. But if you use a word like expiation or sanctification or justification, you just need to say it and explain it, like in a sentence. It's okay if you don't explain it down to the details, but it's like, oh, people can think in their mind, oh, they don't expect me to know all these words. Or never say, well, we all know the story of Abraham. Like that's not, nobody knows, that's not a thing. People will feel really dumb. Now, you don't need to explain Abraham if you're mentioning something, but you could just say briefly for a minute, Abraham is the one God called to begin, this is a terrible way of doing it. I say begin the Israelites, whatever. But just say who he is, how God called him and Sarah to make a great nation out of which the Redeemer of the world is going to come. There's a lot more to Abraham than that.
Right.
But it's like, oh, okay, I don't know everything. That's enough for me to know. They expect me not to know everything. And so we just recommend doing that. Even in your next steps, like if you have an event coming up and that's not clear, like who is this for? If I haven't been to this church in 5 years, would I know what this is?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with saying, like, let's say you have an annual event. There's nothing wrong with saying, well, last year we had a really great turnout. It was a lot of fun. Like, that stuff is fine, but also mention it, also explain it in a way if someone's new, that they would know what's happening.
Yeah.
If you assume everyone knows everything, it won't be explained. The best way we talk about it is just this. Like, think about if a really good friend of yours who has never been to church finally came to your church this Sunday, what would you do differently? How would you explain things differently? My guess is you would still say all the things you were going to say, you would just be sure to explain them so that they're not completely lost. Again, it's not that they're going to understand everything, but explaining things recognizes that people might be new or people that might not know as much as you might think they should know, and they're still welcome here. So again, even like today, we're going to be in the Gospel of Mark. For us, we have the page number on the screen with Bibles in every seat, so it's pretty easy. But if not, it's like, hey, it's in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, or Matthew, Mark, whatever. It's about 2/3. Like super brief, giving them some context. They may still like open their Bible and try to find the page number or whatever, but that's fine. But it's like, oh, we don't expect you to know exactly where it is. And so just explaining everything that you do makes it much more likely for new people to feel welcome, which means they're much more likely to return.
Yeah, and I don't think you need to. I think sometimes the worry can be, is this going to feel, I don't know, pandering is not the right word, but is this going to feel like pointless to all my people that are here regularly? And coincidentally, just this past weekend, or maybe it was last week, I was listening to the message from another church that's in our area that, this isn't a great term, but I think you get what I mean, is a lot more like seeker friendly. Okay, if you kind of get what I'm saying by that. But the guy explained everything, and I mean like everything. And not once was I like, okay, I get it. But I was listening to it, I was like, this is a good, obviously I don't listen to every one of their sermons. I just happened to catch this one because is an interesting topic. But I was like, this is a good lesson in knowing that there's people that are going to be there that don't know everything or that aren't regulars. Now, in their case, they're a large church. They know that there's probably people, or I mean, they know, or slash they have no idea if everyone is a regular attender or not. But it was like, man, even if this is my first kind of like foray into church, I would not be lost because he's explaining everything, but everything is being explained in like a second. Like it's not, okay, now let's rewind all the way back to the beginning of this book, and here's everything that's happened so far, and it feels like it's taken forever, but it's just these like little things, and everything was just like a little one-off comment. And the funny thing is, this dude, like, he wouldn't call himself the best communicator in the world, and neither would most people. So it wasn't like listening to this greatest communicator and doing whatever. But I was like, it's just someone who knows that there's people here that maybe not know what he's talking about, and is taking a quick second to explain things. And it was really like, it was a good lesson in doing that. But it's a good point even with the events, because there's certain things that we just assume everyone knows with every event. Yeah. Like, we know most of our events, well, I guess by this point every one of our events are free. People may not know that. And so like, we do trivia night roughly every quarter. That used to cost something, now it doesn't. But we make sure to always say like, hey, this is a free event. Or we did at time of recording this, the day before, we had pizza in the park, which is, we go to a park and eat pizza. But make sure people know, like, hey, this is a free thing, or this is something you don't need to bring anything to. You just show up, and it's the kind of thing where our people know that, but a new person may be thinking like, oh, I may have gone to a very small church before that didn't have any money, so they asked people to bring money for things. Is that something that's going to happen here? And we just want to eliminate as many questions as possible and make people and kind of eliminate all those barriers.
Or
and
if the event's at your church, make sure you say it's at your church.
Yeah,
trivia
location.
is always at
exactly.
New City, but if you're new, you don't know that.
Exactly. Yeah, location where it is, and all those things that you just assume people know, or may even be in the graphic if you're showing a graphic, but not everyone's going to sit there and analyze the graphic as you're talking. And so just reiterating this info really quickly, not taking a ton of time on it, but I think that's really helpful and help people engage with what you're saying.
Yeah, so explaining everything. Again, going back to this YouTube and this online presence too, like if you want people to watch some of your stuff, you're going to have people who don't know anything about your church, your sermon series, where you've been. So you got to explain it so that people might be interested in wanting to learn more.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So let's explain everything. Then last but not least, digital next steps. Now, here's what we mean.
What does that mean?
Great question. We've started recently because I've noticed some other larger churches have been doing this, and so we're like, we'll just try it. And we're smaller, and so sometimes it's like when you try something, it's like this might take a while to even know if it's going to work or not.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to commit to it. But after the first week, it was already.
It was working.
It's already working. I was like, wow.
Yep.
So I mean, I guess it shouldn't be surprised, but I was. So what we've started to do is we've started to make keyword. So basically, you can text a keyword for certain next steps at our church. Now, teaser, next episode, we're going to explain more of how we set this up. Now, you may already do this, so this might not be new to you. But if not, and I'm assuming for a lot of people it's not, particularly for smaller churches, we're going to explain how you can set all this up.
Yep.
For now, we have a number, it's 97,000. And you can text this stuff too if you want to see how it works.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of words. So like we'll say like text NCC Connect, all one word to 97,000 for the Connect card. So we tell people you can fill out this Connect card or you can text this number, which by the way, if you live stream, this is how you help people do that. If you tell people to go to a URL, nobody does that. Like nobody does that. If you tell someone to text, that's super simple. Now the text just sends them a link.
Yeah.
But it's worked for us already.
Yeah.
So like you could text that, you could text NCC groups, all one word, and so to 97,000. So we mentioned that last couple of weeks. You could text NCC baptism to 97,000. Basically, this idea was like, 'cause one of the guys I listen to, they do this often at their church, and it's like after a while, I was like, bro, I'm just going to text it.
Yeah.
I don't go to your church. I don't live in the state that this church is in. But you hear it so often. And this really helps people who listen to your podcast later or who listen to the live stream or to the sermon later, particularly if you mention it during the sermon, like, hey, fill out this Connect card, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But if they're watching the live stream and you're like, hey, text NCC Connect to 97,000, well, then they might actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might actually text to join a group, if they're listening during the week or later. And so we've done that. We'll talk about more how we do it. We're using Clearstream, I think .io. I don't know why it's .io, but it is.
Yep.
The reason is because Text and Church, we're just helpful here, just being honest. Text and Church only does the standard 10-digit number, like the area code and 7 digits. They don't do a short code. I felt like it was an infomercial if I was on stage saying text 919-800-0525, which is our church's text church number.
Yep.
Like text the keyword. It's like that just seems like an infomercial. Nobody can remember that.
Impossible to remember.
Unless you put a graphic on the screen every time, which we don't want to do that. It's literally just 97,000 this word. And after a while, people hear it all the time. They might actually do it. And it's a lot easier. So Clearstream does offer that. Now, I'll just say this. You can get a paid, dedicated 5-digit number that no one else gets. It costs a ton of money.
Yeah.
It's about $12,000 to set it up and $500 a month to maintain it because these regulations that happened a couple years ago at Congress, spam, I guess, I don't know. So that was out for us. Instead, we just use one of the numbers that they give you for free, and we use a keyword. The keyword has to be unique, which is why it says NCC groups. Mm-hmm. It's not as great as if it was just groups. Like if you pay for your own number, you can say groups or baptism or serve or what. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do anything else, which is a bummer, but it's the free option. You got to pay for the service, but you don't have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for the number. And so we've been doing that. So the last couple of weeks we've done the Connect card, but we did not baptism. We did groups. And we had people sign up 2 weeks in a row for groups over text.
Yeah.
And one of them has been with a part of our church forever. He was serving on the sound booth that weekend.
Yep.
Ain't no way he was filling out a Connect card.
Yep.
But it's simple, it's easy to do. He texts and now he's going to be in a group. And so digital next steps, you can look into it again. We use Clearstream. Next episode we'll talk more about like how we do it and all that sort of thing. But we mention Connect card and the text number. Or for groups, they can fill out their Connect card or can the text. And I would just say this. Don't say if you're online, text the number, and if you're in person, fill out the card.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it's like, it feels weird. You want to make it super simple.
Yep.
And so during this last couple sermons, that's what I've been doing. We mentioned the Connect card during Next Steps, but during the sermon, I don't mention the Connect card. I just mention text this number, A, because I'm fine with people texting the number, but also B, if people are listening to the podcast or watching the sermon online or listening to it later, they don't have a Connect card in front of them. And so it's just a lot easier to say that. And so after a while, people find, makes it really easy, especially with the numbers the same. So that's a lot of rambling I just did there. But digital Next Steps is something we're starting to do, is we're attaching a text code as well as the Connect card or fill out information.
Yep. One of the big things that we care about is people taking their next steps. In fact, you can't see this in the video if you're watching the video, but to this direction, we have an entire wall that says take your next step.
Yep.
And it has all of our next steps, which is groups, baptism, partnership, which is membership, giving, and serving. And so we want people to be obviously taking their next steps in their faith. We don't want someone to just like start coming and then just have that be it. And so we've been always looking for ideas and ways to make it easier for people to engage in whatever their next step is, whatever those next steps are. And so this is the next or whatever thing that we found that makes it even simpler. It was not complicated before, but it takes out one of those barriers where if you're watching online, now you can do it easily. Or if you're maybe more introverted or more intimidated to go up and talk to a complete stranger, here's a way for you to be able to do that. Where, yes, there's always other ways they could have filled that Connect card and dropped it in a giving box, and we would have been fine with it. But we don't tell them that's an option because we want to meet them.
Yep.
And so there's always ways to, I guess, there's always ways to like, oh, we don't need to do this because people could do all those other things. But we want to take away as many barriers as possible to give people the most opportunity to be able to engage. And this is something that we found that works. And so, like you said, we'll talk about how that works in the next episode. But I think one of the biggest things here is just looking for how can we engage people? How can we make people or get people to take those next steps and take away as many barriers as possible? And I think this is a good way to do that.
And again, some people, whether they're introverted or they're just new or for whatever reason they don't want to talk to anybody. I mean, you could be extroverted, be like, I don't know you, don't want to spend time talking to you. And so like Connect card, for example, if you want to sign up for a group to drop off a Connect card, the Connect table involves talking to someone where you might not want to.
Yeah.
You might just want to get more information and kind of see if you want to do this. And you might feel like if you talk to someone, you had to sign up right then. So texting is really easy.
Yep.
Or the Connect card, it's like, I'm not sure about this church. I don't really want to talk to somebody, but I'll fill it out online and then they can like email me or whatever. But that way it's a little bit easier for me if I, for whatever reason, don't want to talk to somebody about this.
Yep.
And so it makes that easier too.
And here's the reality. We all know this, especially if you've been in like church for a long time. And maybe this is more true with kind of maybe an older generation. Some church people just like to talk forever. And so I can think of one time years ago back in Michigan where we're from, going to a church, filling out a Connect card. Now, granted, this actually worked out really well for us because this guy introduced us to a church that we ended up helping plant. But at the time, we filled out a Connect card, we were talking to him, and the conversation lasted forever because he wanted to give us a tour of the building, which was cool, but it was like a mega, I don't literally consider mega church, but it was a really large church.
Yeah.
And so we're like, this tour is taking forever, dude. Like, I didn't really care to see every room. But I remember at the time thinking, like, dude, come on. And now, granted, that worked out in the long run. But there's a lot of people, I think, that may think, like, maybe I got kids I got to grab, or we made lunch plans or whatever after church. I don't have time for a 20-minute conversation. Now, we know that's not what's going to happen,
Right.
but they don't know that. Yeah. And so just giving them the option of doing some things a little bit quicker is helpful.
So digital next steps are helpful because if people take their next step, they're more likely to connect and stay at your church.
Yep.
So those are 7 growth strategies that work. Again, it's not about doing all these things and blow up, but it's about implementing some of these things and just retaining some of the people that are actually showing up can make a big difference. So again, if you want more information, practicalplanting.com. You can get that Church Planners Guide to Social Media, even if you're an established church. I mean, it's the same stuff.
Yep.
Also, ambassadorsministries.com/practical. That's a plural, ambassadorsministries.com/practical. For fundraising to get more people on your church staff, we highly recommend that as well. And we will be with you next week on Practical Church Planting.